Welcome to another edition of CCFLT, Early Language Support Teacher Hangout, Early Career Language Teacher Hangout. Sorry about that. We are joined this evening by Michael Miller. Michael, thank you so much for joining us this month.
You're very welcome.
And Michael, for any teachers out there who don't yet know anything about you, could you just share a little bit about who you are, where you're teaching, what you're up to?
Sure. I've been teaching for about 28 years. I've been teaching in Colorado for 22, and I'm a German and Spanish teacher over at Cheyenne Mountain Jr High in Colorado Springs. I am a TPRS teacher. I have been using TPRS for probably, gosh, I don't even know, 18, 19 years, quite a long time. And I've written some curriculum for both German and Spanish. The German is called Sabine und Michael, and the Spanish is called Charo y Lee. And I've done some leadership things in the national TPRS conferences and that type of thing. So I think there was a biographical of me about some of the other accomplishments. If you're really curious, I hate to toot my own horn beyond my own just generalities, but be glad to see if I can answer your questions.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you with us this month, Michael, and I know most early career language teachers are probably hoping they still look as good as you do after 28 years of teaching. Before we launch any questions, can you just real quick give any of your websites for the Charo and Lee or the German materials?
Well, for those who speak German, you'll know if I say sabineundmichael.com. That should do that. And then there's also, for the Spanish speakers, Charo y Lee. Lee is actually the American name, L-E-E. So charoylee.com is the Spanish one.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Michael, I guess a great place to start out, you mentioned some of your professional involvements. And, you know, as an early career teacher, it can feel in the early days like you are all alone out there. And I wonder if you could talk just a little bit about, you know, the fact that you're not alone, even if it's not folks at your own school, but that you have access to greater networks out there who are of folks who are eager to help you.
Right, yes. First of all, you know, as a German teacher, you really do feel alone in a lot of ways, as you tend to be the only German teacher at a particular site. But understand that your colleagues have a similar experience to you, especially if it's a colleague that is perhaps a non-Spanish teaching colleague, so French or Chinese or something. They also probably feel the same way that you do for perhaps not having all the resources that certain other languages might have, and so forth. However, there's also a lot of freedom in that. And I was given a huge blessing that once I did find out about TPRS, I did approach my principal and said, hey, I found out about this new type of methodology. I'd really like to experiment with that. And he said, yeah, go for it. It's your program. And, you know, you have to, it's yours to build, basically. And I said, hot dig. So I got up there and I created some lesson plans that I thought flowed the way I wanted them to. So to me, that was actually just the best blessing, to be somewhat alone in that sense, that I could develop this curriculum. Then, of course, and I'll be chatting about this later too, there are a lot of people that can really help in mentoring a person, and I got a lot of mentoring, especially through Susan Gross, who was my French teacher colleague. So she helped me quite a bit along the route. She also was teaching with TPRS, and we were both kind of in the early phases of it when it was really just getting developed. So we were kind of fishing our way through the methodology. And today what I do is actually not really pure TPRS. It's a little bit more like just a comprehensible input based methodology, although I still claim to be a TPRS teacher.
Yeah, and you know, maybe something you could help clarify there. You talked about TPRS, you talked about comprehensible input. Our national organization, ACTFL, has a position statement about trying to stay in the target language 90% of the period. What can you encourage early career teachers and what supports can you offer them as far as just staying in the target language regardless of methodology?
Yeah, that is important. Regarding the staying in the target language, there is a real big caution on that, and that is primarily, I've seen people run a class where they speak all kinds of the target language, but the kids don't understand it. And so, although, yes, ideally you do want to stay in the target language quite a bit, and yeah, you don't want to speak English the whole time, you've got to make sure it's comprehensible. And sometimes that means just going to English quickly to say, this is what the word means, and now we're back to German or whatever your target language is. So you've really got to make sure, pardon me, that everything you say, in fact, everything you say is comprehensible. It's very easy for it to become incomprehensible. And I think when I'm talking that, oh yeah, everybody will get this. It's easy because I understand it. But the students may not understand it, and I need to take steps to make sure they do. So TPRS has come up with some great ideas of quick comprehension checks, usually just a simple translation. I like to do this, a little, can you see that on the thing? Timeout for translation. And if I do this, the kids know I just want a quick translation. What did that mean? Just so that I know they're understanding everything I say. But yes, if you can guarantee that they really understand everything you say, either through a translation, doesn't have to be a translation. Certainly the more advanced classes can just respond to you in the target language. But one way or the other, you really have to make sure that you can stay in the target language. Now, when I was a traditional teacher using a traditional textbook, I agreed with the idea of staying in the target language, but I had a hard time. I struggled with that. I did not know exactly how to do that. So I was struggling to find a method. And then when I found TPRS, I thought, that's it. That's what I want. So that's the idea. I have also got, if I'm not jumping too much to the gun of your role as host, I do have 3 things that I'd like to kind of cover that I thought would be pretty good for anyone who might have a question about that. Should I?
Please do, jump on in.
Okay. Well, the basic 3 things that I'd like to tell any new teacher is the first one's about classroom management, and then what I call best bang for the buck using that's actually more related to what you were just talking about staying in the target language and what's the best use of your class time. And finally, the third one is the real attitude of excellence. So if those are things that the listeners are not quite as interested in, that's okay, and I can change it. If you have a different topic that anyone would like to know about, well, I'll just answer the best that I can, and you know, hopefully my nose won't grow too much. So anyway, so that's the first one would be, I guess, classroom management, and I'll start with that because really, in my opinion, and I hope I'm not rambling too much here, but for classroom management, I feel that if you can't manage the class, you can't teach the class. And that doesn't matter whatever methodology you use. If the kids are off task, if they're talking over on this corner, if they are doodling, if they are doing anything that takes away from what the class needs to be, you need to bring that back into focus. With TPRS, it may seem like a very teacher-centered class, and we actually get accused of, well, you just do all the talking and the kids just sit there passively and listen. I could see where people would get that opinion, but the truth is I'm really involving them because I'm looking right at them and I'm making sure that they are participating in our discussion. I do like to throw out questions and answers so that it purposely draws them into the discussion. But if they are off task, I got to handle that. The second thing I would say is there's a big difference between being a friend and being friendly. Now, I want to be a friendly teacher. I want to be pleasant. I want students to come in and not be scared to death of me, especially because, as you might see in my tag there, I'm a junior high teacher. I happen to be 6'2", and so when junior high students look at a 6'2" guy, and they're often coming out from a lot of female teachers from the grade school, why I could be very imposing. So I do want to be friendly, and I actually shake the hands of every student that comes in every day, and I try to greet them. And once we get our German greetings down, I greet them in German. So I try to be friendly, but I'm also not their friend. I am their teacher, and that's a mistake I made early on. I thought I would be their friend. Let me give you a for example here. When I was a student teacher, I thought, well, we could be friends and we'll understand each other. And I'm just going to tell you that if you need to go to the restroom, for example, just get up and go, and it'll be okay, and come back when you're all set. So I thought, hey, I'm being very friendly and I'm being a friend of them, and they're going to appreciate that. Well, what happened, of course, and you can probably guess, is they abused that, and they would go meet their friends because they knew I would let them go every day. And I had students who were leaving the class for 10 and 15 and 20 minutes every day to go to the restroom. Well, I found out that didn't work. So then, in an effort to gain back the classroom management, I erred on the side of being too strict. And so I was more of a dictator, and I lost the friendliness part. So I started doing, some other teachers told me, well, maybe you ought to give a certain amount of bathroom passes, and a lot of people talk about that. And the bathroom is just one of many, many, many issues, but it's a good example to use. And so I did this, and I had like 2 bathroom passes a semester or some, I don't even remember, it was so long ago. But the long story short was, one girl was saying, but I need to go to the bathroom again, and I've lost the passes. And I said, I'm sorry, you've used it all. And I was very strict, and she ended up leaving without my permission to go to the bathroom. Well, the mother called me and was furious and said, my daughter was on her period, and how dare you, prevent her from going and all that. So the trick, and it's really tough because a lot of beginning teachers are either too friend-like, they're too soft, or they're too strict, and it's really tough to have that balance. I think I've got that now in my classes, and I'll just give you a sample of how I solve the bathroom pass, because it's a practical thing that a lot of people ask about. So I tell the students, I say, you know that we speak a lot of German in class, and I don't waste time. We're talking constantly in German, and this is very important for your input, that you really hear and get this input here. So if you miss my class for any reason, and they're all good reasons, if you have to go to the locker, go to the bathroom, get a drink, see the nurse, get called out for a band concert, I don't know what it is, sports, we get a lot of sports calls out, we all do, and it's all good stuff, but you're missing my class and you're missing the input, and I want to recover that with you. So I say, if you got to go, you can go as much as you want, but you need to make the time up with me, and then I'll find out when you left, look at my lesson plan. Oh, we covered this word and you missed the word felt tip pen or whatever it is. So, and then I would go over that with them. So it looks like, of course, with that policy, that I'm really on their side. I want them to know this language, and they can't deny that. But of course, when you tell them, oh yeah, you can go to the restroom, but you need to see me after school to make up whatever you missed, then they start thinking twice about it. Well, I don't think I need to go that bad. And
something I really love about that, Michael, is how you really just frame it in terms of the importance of their learning, and you care about them and their learning. I think that's so important to the relationship building. For anyone who's just joined us live, this is the CCFLT Early Career Teacher Hangout with Michael Miller. And he was just sharing with us some tips about classroom management and relationship building. If you have questions for Michael, you can tweet them at me at @SeniorG. You can also post them as comments on our event page, and I will be checking in on those and asking those to Michael. Michael, you mentioned that, in addition to, you shake hand when they first come in the room. I mean, that is a huge piece of building relationships. You mentioned that you have, hand signals in order for students to let you know when they are needing extra help. And I'm wondering if you have any other tips and tricks just as far as procedures that you do to stay in the target language and build these strong relationships with kids that just entices them to learn language and study culture with you.
What I would suggest on that is if a teacher is too strict, there's a really great book by Jim Fay called Love and Logic, and you should read that book if you are a little bit too strict and you need to give students the choices. Jim Fay's Love and Logic gives those choices, like I mentioned with the bathroom pass type of choice. If you are too soft and you need to firm it up a little bit, I would suggest Fred Jones. Fred Jones actually has a great idea of preferred activity time, or PAT time, PAT time. And I really disagreed with it when I first heard about it. Oh my gosh, there's my phone going off. How do let me see if I can get that out of the way. Well, anyway, I'll try. It's going to go off in about 3 more rings, so I apologize about that. I wasn't expecting this, and now I'm getting everything ringing at the same time. My apologies. Anyway, let's get back to that. On the pad time, I really disagreed with it until I understood what it was about. Fred Jones said, time yourself when you start the class. How much time do you waste by taking roll, having announcements, passing back papers, all of this other procedural stuff? And I thought, oh, maybe 2 minutes. It can't be that much. But when I actually timed myself, it was more like 8 on average. And 8 over every day, 8 minutes of passing back papers and announcements and wasting time. So he said, if you can enlist the help of the students to pass back the papers and put the announcements on an announcement board and have them go over it just quickly, list that, then you're going to save yourself a lot of time. Then give them part of that time back, perhaps on Friday. I love it. So that has helped me. Also, Harry Wong has some very good ideas. You might want to read his materials and so forth. The one last thing I'll say on the topic is you do want to be strict and have really strict rules, but, well, I shouldn't say really strict rules, but reasonable rules. I mean, reasonable. You have to maintain a class because you got to make sure everyone is being, is able to understand what you're saying. And so if one student's going to blow it for the whole class, you can't allow that. You just can't. But what I was going to say is always allow for an out, especially at the junior high level, but I would say probably every level as a sample. If a student turns in an assignment late, I don't accept late assignments, but I have something they can do. Now it's going to cost them more time than it would have if they would have gone, if they would have turned the assignment on time, but there's an out. And at least it gives the ball in their court. If you want to make the points back, you can do this plus this extra stuff. One quick example, I just recently graded a big vocabulary packet that the students had to write out. And it was worth quite a few points. And I made this big issue. You have to turn it on time. And I've announced it for 2 straight weeks. Here's the due date. You have to turn it on time. Well, as you can imagine, one student didn't. And I said, well, I'll wait till after school, but if it's not here by after school and I gave a firm time, I can't accept it. Well, it still wasn't there. So the student came in actually a week later and said, oh, here's my vocabulary packet. And I said, well, okay, I'll have a look at this and I'll give a temporary grade. But since you are now a week late, the only way I'm going to accept this is if you rewrite it all over again, which would be like about 2 hours worth of work. And she looked at me like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. I said, yeah, but you should have had it on time, you know. So there's an out. It's going to cost her a lot of time, and hopefully the message will be, gosh, I should have gotten that in on time. But at least it's not, you blew it and you get an F and you're done. I don't like that message either. So
yeah, that is so huge to make sure the focus is on the grade being a representation of what the student knows and is able to do in the target language, not a representation of how compliant they are with our decrees.
right.
You know, Michael, I know you wanted to get to the attitude of excellence, and perhaps this next question leads into that, but I know that, you know, as opposed to a lot of us language teachers who maybe view ourselves as having tremendous job security because there's just not that much competition, your colleagues who are teaching German might not necessarily feel that way, and there's a huge onus on them to continue and grow the program, or there is no job security. And so as somebody who's been doing this now for going on 3 decades, what advice can you give an early career language teacher who maybe they are the only guaranteed lifeblood of the German program to building and sustaining a German program?
Well, that's a tough one for those lesser taught languages other than, say, Spanish, or depending on where you are in the country, where there's a real emphasis on one particular language. Yes, it's tricky, and I think every German teacher knows you probably need a second endorsement just to make sure that you're employable full time. So in my case, I do speak Spanish, and I had taught Spanish as well, and it just depends on the enrollment. If my German enrollment does drop, I do have the Spanish that I can take and teach. And so you really should have a second endorsement if you are one of those lesser taught languages. In fact, even Spanish, you may want to have another endorsement just to cover in case there's only enough enrollment for part-time or something like that. But on the positive, you know, if you do make your class engaging, and once I was given this permission to try this TPRS with my classes, word got out and kids really liked it, and basically that has tripled my program. And here I am, a full-time German teacher at a junior high school in Colorado. I believe I'm the only one. It's a rare, I think I am. It's a pretty rare thing, and I think the community really supports that, and they know that it's a good thing. I often get one sibling trying the language, and then their younger brothers and sisters get in too, and so forth. So anyway, it's there's still, the reality is, even with TPRS, even if you're a great personality, even if you've got everything going for you, there could be other things. There could be budget cuts, and you just have to understand there are other realities. And so that's why I still say having another endorsement may at least keep you firmly in the school. And then maybe if you ride out some bad economy and budget cuts, you can try to build that program up again. I will say, with a small bit of braggadocio, that several German teachers across the country have told me that the curriculum of Sabine Michel has saved their program, and
that's
really
awesome.
tripled mine. So there we go.
Yeah, I'm tripling your program. That is certainly a great way to grow and sustain a German program. And you know, I know you wanted to talk about this sustain an attitude of excellence, and maybe that's a good way opportunity to parlay into that.
Sure. Susie Gross, my mentor, had a great phrase. She said that good is the enemy of great. And that has really stuck with me, that anyone who just says, oh, this is good enough, I'm just unsatisfied with that. Now, does that mean I need to, abandon my other duties, say to my family, or my community. No. But just rolling around and teaching as if good enough is good enough really is never going to make you into that great teacher. So a quick story that shows you what got me into this is the very first, when I was a really early teacher, and I took my very first trip to Germany with kids, and I was still a traditional teacher. I took my absolute best kids. They were ninth graders. We actually taught 7th, 8th, and ninth grade way back in this day. And so I had them for 3 years. And I took this trip, and it was one of those EF trips where they combine a bunch of classes onto one bus to save money and all that. Well, I was paired with, there was this other junior high school or middle school from St. Louis somewhere, and they had 8th graders with only a year and a half of German. So they had half the German that my students had, and yet those kids spoke and communicated, and my kids wouldn't. And I took only my best kids, and they wouldn't say anything in German. They would just go up to store owners and say, "Excuse me, you speak English?" and wouldn't even try. And so it frustrated me, but I knew I was missing something. And so I asked this fellow, "What are you doing? Because you're getting your kids to say stuff, and I'm not." And he just told me a bit about a natural approach, but I didn't know much about it. Well, shortly afterwards, I found TPRS and so forth. But I continue to look and see who is doing something better than I am right now, and can I get something from that. In fact, just 2 months ago, I visited a math teacher because she's getting inroads with formative assessments. I thought, all right, show me what you're doing. And I went there to find out, and we had a great time chatting about it. I mean, we really had a fabulous time. So if the main thing is, if another teacher is accomplishing something that you're not, don't be jealous or standoffish or anything. You should say, there's somebody I can learn from, and humble yourself a little bit and come to that teacher and say, tell me your secret. I want to know it. I can't imagine any teacher saying no. I mean, it's flattering. So I think every teacher would be very, very welcoming to something like that. So that's what I've done. I also open myself up to, I do give the National German exam to my students, and that gives me some feedback. My first exams, we were in about the 25th percentile, which was pretty good. But now I'm scoring in the 65th percentile after years of perfecting this. And that's actually the level 2 high school sophomore test. I get to my 8th graders in level 1, and we're scoring at the 65th percentile. So we're, outscoring a lot of people a whole level above us. So that tells me something. And you'd think other people would say, hey, tell me your secret. I'd be glad to do that. And by the way, when this Hangout ends, and if you still have questions, you're very welcome to contact me, and I'll say my email address, or I think my Google one is visible somewhere on the screen on this thing. So I'll let you know about that. But that's one thing. Oh, I did put a note to myself. One other thing to consider setting up a video camera and filming your class, and finding somebody that you consider a mentor, somebody you look up to, and say, could you look at my class and see what could be done better here, and maybe you'll get some ideas.
I love so many of these things. There's just so much to digest in between, good being the enemy of great, and just being humble enough, no matter, I think that goes beyond early career language teachers to really wherever we are in our career, to saying, I need to get out of my own shell and go watch other teachers teach. And what I love there, Michael, is you said that it doesn't even have to be a language teacher, or it doesn't have to be the language that we are teaching. We can learn and grow by watching any of our colleagues who are doing awesome. And, there's going to be something there we can take into our own rooms and bring that awesome to our own students.
Yeah, right.
Well, so, Michael, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, I do have a quick note about best bang for the buck, and I know I'm going a little bit over time here, but I think this is worth listening to. It's mostly just a caution about whatever the newest fad is, and these come all the time. You're going to sit through all kinds of stuff, and as you go to conferences and you'll learn about this and that and so forth, and you may think, oh, I should do this, oh, I should do that, but you do have to be selective, and here's the selection you have to be careful about. If you really do buy into the idea that comprehensible input is the best thing you can do, then that has to override everything. Quick sample, one of my colleagues worked really hard to build this vocabulary game, or that's what she called it, where she rolled 2 dice, and 1 die represented subjects like yo and tu and el and ella and so forth, and the other die had represented verbs, so like andar y caminar and all these various verbs, and students would roll the die and they'd have to say the correct conjugation of this one verb, and she was really excited about all the time she spent building this game and making all this stuff. And I came to watch it, and I watched. Everything was in English. They eventually spat out 1 form of the verb per minute, and so she was excited, said, man, how did I do on that? I said, you really didn't get the best bang for the buck. In 1 minute, I could speak hundreds of words, and you got 1. And it wasn't the best bang for the buck. So look out for, especially a lot of technical stuff. There's a lot of technology, and somebody may have this neat idea, but it may not get the wealth of comprehensible input that you really want to have. So be careful if some new technology, now I'm not downing technology, it's great as long as it adds to the comprehensible input or something to that effect. So like e-readers, and there's all kinds of great YouTube videos. I use those all the time. But if it's not going to add to the comprehensible input, and especially if you're only going to get 1 word in the target language per minute, that should be set aside. That's trash. So
it sounds like maybe the word of warning there is when we get excited to sort of do a check against ourselves that we are doing it not for the technology's sake, and we're not doing the new flashy new gimmick for the gimmick's sake. Exactly. Rather, we are doing it for the sake of hooking and engaging our students into that comprehensible input.
Absolutely. Right. So those were the main points I wanted to come across. If anybody wanted to ask any other questions, I don't know if you've received any other questions, but I do have time. I can stay here as long as needed, but I know it is 8 o'clock, and some other people need to go to sleep at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a few people watching live. If they have any additional questions, they can post them to the event page, which I'm sure Michael will be checking in on, and he'll respond to you in text form there. And we'll also make sure that his email and contact information are there. Again, this has been a CCFLT Early Career Language Teacher Hangout. We do this on the 2nd Monday of each month. Next month will be our last of the series for the 2014-2015 school year. We greatly appreciate everyone's time and energy for coming and joining us, and just taking in all this great wisdom that Michael Miller shared with us. Michael, thank you so much for your time this evening.
You're very welcome, and I welcome any other questions for follow-ups, okay?
Thank you very much. And everyone, have a great night. We'll be here next month. I'm Noah Geisel. Please do send us your questions on the event page, and you can also send them directly to me on Twitter for next month. We look forward to seeing you then. Have a great night, everybody.
Okay, Auf Wiedersehen.